Welcome to the module on Naturality during today's course on rewriting the rules of retail. When it comes to naturality, this is a key driving factor behind the consumer desire for more sustainable retail products and retail services. While many of today's consumers are craving much more sustainable retail products, they are turning to areas like thrift stores and consignment shops, but there are so many ways to implement naturality in your retail solutions. And today, I want to talk about 3 sustainable business models in order to help inspire you. The first example comes to us from an insight on trendhunter.com called Revamped Consignment, where we're actually seeing brands take the idea of thrift shopping and giving it more of a glamorized appeal. Now, this is happening both online and offline. One really great example that we see as an online brand is ThreadUp. This is James Reinhart. He is the CEO and co-founder of ThreadUp. And he understands that fashion is the second most polluting industry in the world behind oil. And he believes that that's a lot of dirt on our backs. And if our clothing choices matter for our personal brands, then where we actually obtain our clothing matters as well. It matters to our planet, to our kids, and ultimately to our future. Now, James and his team have conducted countless research studies in order to better understand their consumer and the consignment space. And they found that 72% of secondhand shoppers have bought more used items this year than they ever have before. Now, this is especially relevant for the female demographic. 64% of female shoppers have bought, or are at least now willing to buy, secondhand products. Now, to put this in perspective for you today, if everyone bought one used item this year, we could actually save 11 billion kilowatts of energy, 25 billion gallons of water, and 449 million pounds of waste. Now, although ThreadUp did begin as an online retailer, they've actually been able to spark up some quite unique partnerships with brick and mortar brands like Macy's and JCPenney, who've actually opened up space in their brick and mortar retail stores in order to allow ThreadUp to actually sell directly to their clients on a more face-to-face and personalized basis. Revamped consignment is widely popular when it comes to the fashion industry, but this is not where we're seeing this trend explicitly. In fact, a really unique way that we're seeing this come to fruition in the culinary space is from a restaurant in Detroit called Lady of the House. This restaurant serves every single meal on entirely old donated dinnerware. The restaurant was founded by Chef Kate Williams and was actually founded on the belief that leveraging and using old donated dinnerware would truly make a difference to our planet. The second business model I want to talk about today comes to us from the insight Everyday Rental, where brands are offering rental services on everyday products like fashion, toys, and even furniture. A more traditional example of everyday rental we can see in the example of Turo. Turo is a peer-to-peer car rental app that allows consumers to rent out their own vehicles. All of the car inspections are done through uploaded images directly to the app, and Turo has also unveiled a remote unlocking feature, so it allows very minimal face-to-face interaction between the rentee and the renter. A bit more of a unique example in the everyday rental space comes to us from a company called StemTrunk. StemTrunk is essentially an educational toy rental platform. So the company wanted to allow children to gain an education through toys, but they also wanted the toys to be recycled, and instead of cluttering up families' houses, they wanted to be able to share toys with various different children. Now, the third business model that I want to take a look at today comes to us from the insight Circular Commodity, where brands are actually creating different products in a closed loop system. So the perfect example to showcase to you is actually a product called Loop. This is a product created from the company TerraCycle, and it is going to be the very first circular shopping system. Now, the best way to describe Loop is essentially thinking about a modern-day milkman. But instead of having milk delivered to your house, you're having different household products like laundry detergent and even dish soap. Now, we know this is incredibly important to today's consumer. Nearly 70% of today's consumer considers sustainability to be an important factor when making a purchase. Brands and CEOs alike are picking up on this as well. 90% of today's CEOs do consider sustainability to be an important factor for future success. Now, one leader in the space when it comes to naturality is Unilever. Their sustainable brands like Ben& Jerry's and Seventh Generation have seen 30% faster growth rates than their non-sustainable counterparts. Now, one way that we're seeing this come to fruition in a really fun insight is through our insight, Ecotainment, where different kinds of alcohol companies are taking advantage of retail spaces and events in order to promote their stance on sustainability. A great example of Ecotainment comes to us from the brand Kettle One. They created an entire series of cocktail competitions in order to promote their stance on sustainability. So they invited consumers in to, of course, test out their cocktails, but the entire event was entirely eco-friendly. In fact, the bar where they were making their cocktails on was made from entirely reclaimed wood. The bar stools that consumers could sit on were made from old plastic bottles and DVDs. The tables that you could rest your drink on were made from old coffee sacks, and of course, all the ingredients leveraged to actually create these cocktails were entirely locally sourced and locally grown, because Kettle One believes in homegrown, not flown. Now, this cocktail series allowed Kettle One to essentially rebrand as a much more sustainable company, and they started living by the ethos, start locally, but think globally. So to recap that module, in order to really create the future of retail leveraging naturality, consider more eco-friendly business models, aligning to the circular economy, and of course, making bigger stances that truly resonate with your consumers. And that does bring us to the end of this module on naturality. Some workshop questions for you to consider are: how might your brand elevate its corporate and social responsibility? And what are your customers' sustainability aspirations? How can your brand deliver that? And I'll see you at our next module.